is your ADHD journey the way you want to tell it? Whether you are self-diagnosed, got diagnosed at a certain age, whatnot. This is your story to tell the way you want to. I will interject here and there, but I want to know about you. I don't care about the scientific shit. What I care about is you. So let's do this.
Groovy.
Yeah.
I definitely will say that the scientific shit did help me cope.
Yeah.
I do want to say that because, so to the beautiful humans listening, my name's Jen. I host a podcast called Shit You Don't Want to Talk About. I also host a live stream called Teach Gen Tech. I mention those two because they have a lot to do with my ADHD journey. I come from a background of complex trauma that, to break it down, these are definitely not the scientific terms, but there's
I read that. I read your description in your podcast, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's really fun to come hang out with me. I want to talk about all the deep shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how to
I fucking
have
love
small
that.
talk. I don't know how to have small talk. I meet
Good.
someone and I'm like, let's talk about the deep shit.
Yeah.
Come on. It'll just be fun.
Right.
And so, and just to get everybody a little bit of a snippet of that, my podcast again is called Shit You Don't Want to Talk About. And all of the social medias are shit, the number 2 talk about. And I say that because we need to change the conversations from shit you don't want to talk about to shit to talk about. And my background is, as I said, complex trauma. It is talking about, I come from solitary confinement, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, rape, self-harm, suicide attempts, homelessness, marriage, divorce, couple abortions, and that doesn't even go into all my medical shit that I have going on. Yet I always thought that I was coping with this stuff okay. And it was in 2020 where I had brain surgery and all this trauma came up afterwards. It's because so for those listening on and watching on the Patreon, definitely go check it out because I'm actually pointing to where on my head it is. I had the craniotomy was right here. It's from there's these arachnoid cysts that I was born with, and all the doctors were like, it's okay, she'll grow out of it. And 99% of the time, little kids do. It's not a big deal. Right. A cyst is just basically a water bubble. It's nothing big. By arachnoid cyst, it means that it's on between my brain and the spider webbing. So that's why it's called arachnoid, the spider webbing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and so in 2020, it was causing me such insane headaches that all I could do to get rid of them or try to help them is tie a scarf around my head as tightly as possible, which would cut off the circulation of the rest of my head, or stack books upon books on top of my head while I laying down, trying to get put enough pressure on it.
Jesus.
I mention all of this because that's why I started Shit You Don't Want to Talk About. That's one. But
I love it. I love it.
But mostly because growing up with the physical abuse and the emotional abuse, my parents went through a divorce when I was about 12, and for some reason they did get me tested for psychological disorders, and ADHD did not happen. They said that they gave me sugar pills, and what was the old one, Ritalin?
Ritalin, yeah. Ritalin's what they start you on at first because it's a lesser, thing than Adderall that is, and then because by law, I mean they got to start you because it's controlled or whatever. They start you on Ritalin. I went through the same, path, and I was like, yeah, it worked, but now it doesn't.
And I was 12 or so. And I mean, so to give y'all context, I'm in my 30s now. I'm 34. And so when I was at 12, that's the 50s, right, probably right around 2000.
I mean, you're close to
And
my age. I'm 40.
okay, there was a big difference back then, and I've talked to quite a few women with ADHD,
Yep.
that it used to be that it had to present in girls the same way it presented in boys, and it doesn't.
No.
It presents itself so different. And I mean, if you meet any ADHD person, it doesn't matter who you are, like there are a lot of similarities. There's also a lot of differences.
Well, every case is different.
Exactly.
Every individual case is so different that you have to get to
Exactly.
know the person with it in order to
Mhm.
even fucking come close to helping them.
Exactly.
And that so
And so they figured out that I'm not the best at organization, and that because I'm not the best at organization, I'm not the best at paying attention,
right.
which is weird because
It,
hyperactivity disorder. And I bring that up because I was that person that everyone knew me as the hyper girl.
right.
Everyone knew me as being like a spaz bot. Like people would call me a spaz bot. And it would be where like my nickname for from some of my family was Dory. And by the way, calling an ADHD person Dory is kind of
That's
fucked up.
yeah, it's very fucked
Like,
up.
I like Dory, don't get me wrong. And I think, like as a
It,
fish, that is super dope. Like, it's a cool fish.
yeah.
But like, don't compare me to that, because I work very, very hard to be functioning adult, and
Yeah.
to summarize me into a fish that, yes, is very forgetful and yes, does see, ooh, shiny.
Right.
There, it,
It's so much more than that.
yeah, yeah. And so I fast forward, I was 12 when that happened. They figured out a little bit of shit, but not a lot. I go through a ton more stuff, and around the age of 27, I think, I well, we'll go with this. The age of 25, the one and only time I've ever been to Vegas,
Huh.
a friend of mine brought Adderall, and I tried it, which made me very awake and also made me handle more alcohol. Yet at the same time, my body didn't know how to handle the up and the down of alcohol and Adderall. Would not
Right.
always suggest mixing those. And I was a cry fest. Uh, it was somebody very close to me in an authority type figure. That's not my parents that gave it to me. So she
Right.
knew what was going on and could like observe me. And she gave it to me again a little bit later, and it was actually starting to help. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And so I finally, like, I moved away from Arizona, and then I moved back to Arizona. And I was like, I think this would really help. Maybe I should go get it checked out. So,
Right.
I don't understand why it is so fucking hard to get diagnosed.
So for girls, it's especially hard because
Why?
it's the 12-year-old boy syndrome. It's the he can't sit still, he can't do that. That's what they label it as, which is wrong. The problem is with girls, it's an internal
Hmm.
restlessness. It's not always external. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But with girls, it's not as noticeable, and that's
Hmm.
wrong. So they need to know what the fuck they're doing when a girl comes in and says, I think I might have this, or can you help me with
Hmm.
what's going wrong? Because the problem is for guys, we're overdiagnosed.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
girls, you're underdiagnosed. So if you
Hmm.
get diagnosed, the only positive to this is that you damn sure have it.
Yeah.
With,
And
with, with boys, it's like you might not, because they're going to diagnose everyone that can't sit still during math class. Like,
yeah, and it was definitely something where when they first diagnosed me, because at least in my experience, they test you for a bunch of different shit. And they're like, cool, you have depression, anxiety, which, like, I feel like it's really hard in this day and age because so many of us are dealing with that.
yeah,
It is also something with complex trauma that if anybody has listened to the book or read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, I love that book with a passion because it talks
it's
about
a
when you
great
go through
title.
trauma, it affects your body and can create disorders within your body as like your body's way to cope with things.
Right.
ADHD is one of them, anxiety, depression. So the psychiatrist is telling me all this. They're like, yep, you have ADHD, you're depressed, anxiety, and you're bipolar type 2.
Right.
And I was like, well, fuck it. I don't care about the rest of it. I just want the drugs to make me feel better.
Right.
Like the Adderall. That's it.
Yeah.
ADHD. I just need to focus. That's it. That's all I care about.
Right.
And by that point, I was in telephone sales, which, by the way, this headphone set is from a call center, and it's really comfortable. But yet, I'm like, I feel like I'm back in the call center, where yours is like a gaming headset.
It is, and I don't know the difference. And usually, this one doesn't work, and I use the headphones that came with the computer, the white Apple.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing that I pulled this out and it worked. So I'm actually in a boathouse right now. Like I am on a lake. This is I go from place to place, and I set up. My wife got me a shower curtain fire, Lobau Smart, for $9 from Amazon, and then this wood thing I made like years ago before I even started this.
Oh, that makes sense. What the reflection is in the background, but it looks like fire.
I know. How sick is that? Like
that is so fun.
It is fun. And what's even more fun about it is if I'm not moving from place to place, setting this up, I'm unfunctional. I've got to change my environment consistently in order to get my best results. If I stay in one place, I can't handle that. Being comfortable is something for my ADHD is awful. But when you're married, you're supposed to be comfortable. You're supposed to settle down with your, spouse and all of that, which is why my wife and I developed a system where it's like, marriage is tough. I mean, it is. Yeah. No one is going to, everyone's going to say, oh, my marriage is great. Bullshit. Marriage is hard as fuck. But at the end of the day, what worth having is easy.
Right.
You just got to figure out a way to do this. And she is neurotypical as it comes.
Yeah.
And so we decided, you know what, every 10 days, we're going to take one night off. We're not going to go out and party and sleep with anyone else, but we're just going to catch up on things that we need to catch up on, work, whatever, because if I'm around you, I'm concerned about how you're doing, and you're concerned about how I'm doing, because we're both caring. Why don't we take a night off from caring and do what we need to catch up on? That has been the biggest game changer in my relationship.
I love that. And I do want to point out, because all of our ADHD symptoms and like how that shows up is very, very different in each relationship, especially when our partners are neurotypical.
Yeah.
My partner is also very neurotypical, and it may sound bad, but he doesn't hear half the shit I say, because I will just ramble.
Yeah.
Like I can literally be like, babe, hey, fucking hey, listen to me. And he'll be like, what? And I'll be like, I actually need you to like pay attention to me. And he'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Because I do ramble. That is something I do. But I do want to like pull us back, because this is something that I found is a key, and something I love about my ADHD is we just had a completely different conversation about headphones that went to relationships. And I'm going to bring us back to, I worked in a call center with these headphones.
You are a smart ADHDer, because what you did right there is your perception is uncanny. You can read somebody within a split second of even looking at their eyes. I guarantee it.
That does have a lot to do with trauma too, because I have to be able to read people to keep myself safe.
Correct. But you process that so fast throughout all the conversations. In the back of your mind, you were going, I know that I need to go back to this. It's not only is it a good point, but it's ADHD.
Mhm.
I love it. I'm sorry, you're fascinating, Jen. Like
Oh, thank you.
I like this is still have not met one ADHD person that is not. So
Exactly. Like each individual is so fascinating. And it's definitely something that I bring it back because this is what made me very successful at sales.
yeah,
And it wasn't the fact that I was trying to sell, it was the fact that I cared about the human. If, I don't know,
God, preach, preach.
let's say that I worked at a company that sold headphones and we were having this conversation. And I was like, dude, when you get a chance, check out these headphones. They're really, really going to make your job better, and keep continuing the conversation because I could give two shits if you actually buy the headphones. I care about you improving your life. And so being able to go back to things of like, well, dude, like, hey, we're good for today. Take my like what are they called? Like the survey to say I'm doing a good
Yeah,
job
yeah,
and
yeah. All
hit
that
me
stuff.
up if you want to get those headphones. And 9 times out of 10, they'd be like, dude, yeah. Like, well, let me hit you up after I look at finances because I sold things that were for small businesses that could cost a few grand.
Right.
So it was the type of thing, but I stressed myself out so much. I hated doing it. I
Yeah.
hated sales. I was good at it, but I hated it. And then I was put into leadership and I didn't fit into their little box.
Oh,
And I was told I was a failure. I could have a
such
team
bullshit.
and they would succeed
Yeah.
better than their previous supervisor because A, I cared about the people,
Oh
and
God.
B, like I could put two and two together. I could be like, yo, it's your tone of voice. Let's try saying it like this. Hey, like it looks like you're missing some things, and teaching them, yeah, they may be neurotypical, but what are things and sayings that they can listen to pick up on those things?
Yeah.
And how can they be kinder to themselves and to the customer? And
Jen,
it was,
you have literally summed up about half of my episodes.
oh shit.
In that, no, it's fantastic. It's fantastic because it's about leadership. That's another one of my biggest things. I think we make the best leaders ever because we don't care because caring works. We care because we actually care. There's a
Yeah.
huge, massive fucking difference in those things.
I think, well,
Eh,
hmm,
eh,
I want to add to that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
Disagree.
it also, no, I don't think it's a disagreement. I think it is something that anyone that is neurodivergent, not necessarily ADHD by itself, but those who go through trauma, which can happen a lot more with those who are neurodivergent or BIPOC community or like the LGBTQ plus community, there are these communities that really care as a human to human because it's just natural to care because they've been through shit.
Right.
They know what it's like to be hated on. They know what it's like to be discriminated on. I
Right.
do think ADHD people in general, like I've met tons of them, um, that it's starting to become much more accepted, like having anxiety or depression, yet it's not understood on how we work in the fact of
Right.
what do we tell our boss? What do we tell our coworkers? What do we tell our
Right.
spouse or our friends of, hey, this is how to best interact with me? Can I be super weird
So
and bring
yes,
up a Twitter thing really quick?
absolutely. Can I piggyback off of what you just said because I am
Do it.
fascinated with everything you're saying? Is so in terms of the how to bring this up to your boss, how do you interact with your how do you explain this to them? You know,
That is actually
and
something that y'all, if you're on Twitter, go follow Wesley Faulkner because he is ADHD and he showed me a oh goodness, what is it called? Like an email description of what he was going to give his boss of, hey, this is how I think. This is why I may do this. Here
right.
are some resources for you to understand it. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah, you know what I told my boss is I said I have a separation in my brain from knowing what I need to do and doing it.
Mm.
Everyone else has a bridge between knowing what to do and doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I have to build the bridge myself. So if
Mm-hmm.
you let me build it my way, I'll be the best employee you've ever had.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a really
And
good way to explain it.
it's a
Asked,
split. It's a split.
I love that.
But what's so great about that though is that you respect it more. And through
Mm-hmm.
building the bridge yourself, you recognize all your shortcuts and you recognize how other people do, why other people do what they do and say what they say.
Mm-hmm.
You know more by
Mm-hmm.
having to do the work yourself. It's harder, but you respect it a shit ton more.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. I think it's more fun.
Oh, it's way more fun. I mean, I don't want to just drive over the bridge. I want to drive over the bridge that I built and take a sense of pride every time I go over it.
Oh yeah. And this
Like,
leads perfectly into, so I asked a question on Twitter today. This is why I'm going to DM it to you later.
right.
And for y'all listening, like you need to comment on this too. What makes you feel most supported? And I put the top 5 things that make me feel most supported, and a lot of it has to do with my ADHD.
Yeah.
I feel most supported when you answer a ton of questions until it clicks. And when I understand the big picture of why, then the task at hand will make sense and be done faster. Being able to assist connecting the dots, comparing to something I've learned before.
Yep.
I'm going to learn how to do my Twitters. Where are all the rest of them?
I have a friend, one of my best friends is Leo. He was in that space the other night. I'm going to recommend you to him because he is so good at that kind of stuff,
Oh, I
like
love
how to
that.
put like tweets together and get. I mean, he basically is. He wants to develop social media for humans, not for clicking the
Yeah.
heart button. You know, like
Yeah.
it's because there's a huge difference. But back to what we were saying on the. I'm sorry. Did you have 2 more? Sorry, that was
I have
ADHD.
3 more. I
3
finally
more.
found them.
Sorry.
Learn.
I'm glad I recognized
Uh,
that.
no, you're good. You're good. And it's understand that my learning and creation style is video, audio, and audio format. I can't read worth shit. I'm also horribly dyslexic.
Me too. Me
Um,
too.
Understand that I'm not trying to be defensive when I receive feedback and explain why I did something. It helps me hear why the process didn't work.
Interesting. Okay.
And the last one, when I'm given a task, I'm going to figure out how everything leading to the task can be done better and work better for the long-term processes. So if you can give me prioritize it for me and break it down and
Right.
tell me deadlines. And I was just like, a lot of that I got from Wesley telling me these things because I was like,
Yeah. And the other thing to add to that at the end is just know that this can change.
oh, yes.
This can change. What works for 7 years straight might not
Mhm.
work tomorrow. And if I tell you that
Yes.
this is what I need now, things have shifted in my brain. If my work has been good for those 7 years, you got to trust that it will be again. It's not
Mhm.
a stick to one process thing. The process always shifts, which is I lived 3 minutes away. Example of this, I lived 3 minutes away from work at a certain point in my life, and it was miserable because I woke up and 3 minutes is not enough time for me to compose thoughts of what I'm going to do the second I get there.
Ah,
So my wife and I moved out to the country, an hour commute. I have never been more productive in my life.
interesting.
And because by the time I get to work, I know exactly what I'm going to do because all I do on that car ride is think about the prioritization of what I need to do. But with 3 minute commute, I can't do that.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm like
And
the opposite.
right. Exactly. That's why we do this. So that
Right?
right. That's why we have these conversations. Is so half the people out there will say, "Oh, I resonate with Lobau." Half the people will say, "Oh, he's shit." Jenn is, the one that you see. Like that's the way this is supposed to be.
Yes, I do really want to add that for all of the humans listening, it's not one or the other.
Right.
It is always like, try it on, It's like a piece of clothing.
Yeah,
Try on something, see if it works. Like try it.
right.
I always try to say like try something for a week or two, so that way you can see
Yeah,
if it was just really uncomfortable at first or if it's an actual like not fitting habit.
right.
And because for myself, I've lived an hour away from work and now I work from home.
Yeah.
And I've learned about myself that I need to work somewhere that understands that I'm not just going to work at work. I think about it throughout the
Oh
day,
my
but I
God, I love that.
also am going to be a spazbot about all of my other projects
Right,
because I want to work on the podcast, but I also want to work on Teach Gen Tech. Then I also want to work on Denver API days. Then I want to
right.
go on this podcast. Then I probably want to take a nap.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's funny about that is 30 minutes ago, I'm going to do what you did to me, circle back around and say constant jumping from one environment to the next.
Mm-hmm.
That is the stimulating part of it. But the part that no one else can understand, it presents itself as being jittery, spastic, restless, all these kind of things. The only problem we really have, in my opinion, is other people's opinions of how we do things. Because if we do things in a certain way, our way, that works, and we're not criticized and told that's not normal, that's wrong, we get down on ourselves, then all of a sudden rejection sensitive dysphoria comes in and ADHD momentum starts to tank. Momentum, you okay?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. It's my, I feel that pain. I feel that
It's
pain
right.
so
But
much.
when we're up
Mhm.
and that domino effect and that momentum is going this way, you cannot fucking stop us.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
feel that.
that's kind of what I'm trying to provide is just an instant jolt to get people on the up, because once they're on the up, I'll just look back and smile at how successful they become because they get that instant momentum, they're gone.
Yeah, and it's definitely the type of thing that I love that you're building community around it
Right.
because so I've first off, I always call it the Twitter. I call it the social media. I'm an old lady. I promise. Like I'm seriously a 90-year-old lady in my body. My grandmother, who is 90, calls me an old lady. Um, and
That's
it's
funny.
something that only recently like in the last month did I start using the Twitter, and in a month I've gained almost 300 followers
Right.
and have been my more authentic self, being my like ADHD self, being
Right.
able to jump on random people's Twitter spaces and being like, I have a gazillion questions. Can I join the conversation? It's going to be
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
then I also can talk about, y'all, I don't have the energy right now. I'll see you later.
Right.
And I love that.
Right. That's what, so I reached out to, there are three people that have really been affected by this podcast and have become really close friends. It is time once again to give recognitions to this podcast's biggest supporters. You know who you are. Proudly supported by Leo Guinan, Kirk Hofstrom, Casey Elliott, Sarah Delano, Justin Allingham, Blushing Crafter, Jamie Young, and Beth Jones. It is also supported by 12 anonymous supporters. Because let's be honest, if you want to support the podcast, you are free to do so, whether mentioned by name or not, because I know I can be a little bit ridiculous at points. So I get it. I totally get it. This podcast does not exist without each and every one of you. I love you. And I reached out to them and said, when I get to that burnout point, because I'm going at this pretty hard, I don't know any other way to do it. But the reason I'm going at it so hard is because I lost my wife's best friend, died due to mental health years ago. And during that time, and I was also really good friends with her husband. He used to work for me, and he's still to this day one of my best friends. And when that happened, I went back through everything, and even her husband, his name's Will, he said, Libal, you're the only one that actually made her feel like herself for 10 minutes. Not even I could do that.
Mhm.
And so when they would come out and hang out with my wife and I, it was me and Lauren sitting next to a fire and we would shoot the shit for 10 minutes. And
I love that.
for the first time ever, she could actually feel confident in herself that she wasn't so fucked up. And all the doctors wanted to say bipolar and this and that and the other. The bottom line, in my non-professional opinion, it was ADHD first. The problem with ADHD, the biggest issue with ADHD is that it allows these more serious things to come in if it's not treated.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's just my opinion of that,
Yeah.
because ADHD, if you have a separation from knowing what you do to doing it,
Hmm.
if that's not treated, if there's no bridge there, how do you defend that bridge
Yeah.
against other things that can surface? If you don't know how you built it, how do you protect yourself in this regard?
Hmm.
Everything starts to, in the highs and lows of ADHD. Like, I'm
Yeah.
high today, I'll be low tomorrow. I have an emotional
Hmm.
hangover because this was a great conversation. All those things,
Hmm.
when presented a certain way, a doctor's going to say that's bipolar.
Hmm.
You see, like, it's the problem is that there's no true way to understand any of these mental health issues unless you really get to know the person with it.
I agree. I'm,
Does that make sense? I mean, and I'm not saying
it
like
does.
I'm holier than thou, all of
No,
this.
no, no.
I know I talk a certain way, but
No,
it's
it's experience. You're talking from experience. And in my own experience, I was taking ADHD medication before I started taking medication for my bipolar type 2. I have to take a
right.
mood stabilizer. That mood stabilizer has made my ADHD medication work better
Has it really? That's
and has made my ADHD better as well.
that's
Yes,
fantastic.
I still get my anxiety, my depression, like all of it can still happen. It's not
Right.
fixed. It's never going to
Right.
be like gone. Yet I I wish I could go back in time and give your friend, it was Lauren, a hug because there is
We're
something,
giving her one right now because I made a promise to her that I would always help. So I am
there's
always going to help.
there's a beauty in meeting someone that in in my experience it doesn't have to be someone that is also neurodivergent,
Right.
yet it a lot of times is easier to when you meet someone neurodivergent and they can bounce through ideas and conversations with you and keep up with you
Yeah.
and not going like, what the hell did you just say? And or that is its beauty on its own. Yet for those that are listening that are the support of neurodivergent. It's different for everyone, yet I have found for myself that I burn out easily. That is something
Right.
I do as well. I have an idea, I want to go hard. I have tried a lot of hobbies. Not all of them have stuck. But when I started the podcast, shit you don't want to talk about, I had two people that I actually met on LinkedIn. Like I've never met them before. And
Right.
we would have weekly calls and they'd be like, Jen, you're taking on too much. They're like, do it, go for it, like whatever you
Right.
want to do. But we feel like you're taking on too much. And being able to have the freedom to make my own choice, yet being able to hear that this is what's probably going to happen
Yeah.
made me push, close to the burnout and then
Right.
go, okay, yeah, you guys are probably right. And being able to say, I hear you, yet I'm not going to listen. Let me make my own mistakes
Yep.
made me feel much stronger in myself
Right.
and not doubt myself, but still allowed me to go, I really do respect these humans. And that's a lot of what I've done in life in general is a lot of people around me are neurotypical because they help me build pillars. I talk to my sister every morning because I have never had a routine. I am horrible at routines. I am
Right.
adaptable to anything
Yep.
except creating myself a routine.
Right.
And I talk to her every single day And now I wake up, I get ready, I take the dog for a walk, I do the dishes. I actually have my Teach Gen Tech the same time almost every day.
Yeah.
And it's something that is finally getting there because I found something that I did struggle with. And instead of it hurting me because so many other people were telling me it was wrong or telling me to do a to-do list,
Oh my God! Don't
fucking
even
work.
get me started on the to-do list. Okay,
Like,
that
I'm glad
that
I like writing them because then I sometimes remember it, but
right, but you'll
90% of
lose
the
the
time,
piece of paper. It's just the
yes.
act of writing it is what is that helps you remember. I
Yeah.
Do you exercise a decent amount, or is that I have found that exercise is honestly the biggest thing for me
Is that a routine?
every day. So I chop firewood. That is my what? Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Okay.
and the only reason I do is because yeah, it's awesome. But the second reason is I see a result every day.
Yeah.
The wood stack gets bigger every day. You go to a gym and you work out or weights or whatever. You're looking in the mirror. You're saying, "Shit, this isn't working." You know, my biceps aren't
Yeah.
big. My chest,
Yeah.
all that kind of shit. But that's not the point of exercise. The
Hmm.
point of exercise is that it helps you work through shit in your mind.
Hmm.
And when you see a result on the positive direction every day, if I chopped one fire log every day, that's one more that I can visually see
Hmm.
in the wood stack, and it gets bigger every day.
Hmm.
That's what keeps me doing it. That's what keeps me engaged. I view the week as 14 days, not 7.
I yes and no for myself. Of
Awesome.
I'm horrible at a routine, like as I said earlier,
Right,
but
right.
I say that just as a it
I,
happens to a lot of us.
yeah, oh yeah.
I've had personal trainers where I did really well, and this is something that I have to ask therapists for, doctors for, anybody that I'm
Right.
associated with. Call me out of my bullshit because I am very charismatic and know how to
Yeah,
talk myself out of a lot of shit, and I don't mean to do it. I'm just really good at it.
it's natural.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have to have people that call me out on it. And I've had trainers that do that. And then for a year straight, I did yoga every single day. It really did help me. So I do want to support what you're saying there.
Absolutely.
I personally am having a really, really hard block in the fact of trying to make so many changes at once. My
That's a
podcast is
great point.
falling
That is a
behind.
great point.
My podcast is falling behind because I started Teach Gen Tech because I need a job. And I am changing my food habits and getting into a routine in the morning that I'm like, okay, if I add one more thing, if
Yeah.
I do yoga at the moment, I'm like, I'm doing really well at all of this that I want to ride that momentum because as you're saying, like yoga or working out, or as you're talking about like chopping
Anything.
firewood, I'm in my head more. And at the moment, I'm scared of that.
Then don't.
Be-
D-
yeah,
don't do it.
exactly.
Then don't do it.
Yeah, because I want to get there again. I love doing yoga. Everybody around me told me how much they saw how it helped me. Yet at the moment, I'm like, I'm not ready for that because there's so
Yeah.
much changing that putting my like having to think about things is going to be really hard because I'm already stuck on the fact that to do my podcast stuff, I have to listen to the episode, to find the audiogram, to be able to create the graphics, to be able to put it
Yep.
out on. And I'm like, I'm overthinking it. That's why I'm not doing social media. And
Right.
I'm like,
Right. And that's my thing right now, same as you, is TikTok. I started off on TikTok, did great. And now I'm not posting as many videos because I started the Patreon where I actually like my highest tier is like a reality show where I'm literally, it's an hour a week episodes I'm sending people of when ADHD shit comes up, what I do to combat it, how I reset, how I do all these things. And I just threw it out there. Apparently a couple people really liked it. So then all of a sudden they signed up. I'm like, oh, fuck, now I got to do it, you know?
yeah,
And that took precedence over the TikTok stuff. So now, yes, I make a video every couple of days, but nothing. I don't spend as much time doing that. My thing is, I am so tired of people with ADHD feeling so down And because I was diagnosed at 5 years old. I was adopted. I had all the privilege in the world in terms of, we know something's wrong with you. Here's the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
This is my way of hitting back. Because I had 35 years to figure out something that worked for me. My strategy is not going to work for 99.9% of people. My strategy, though, is to help you come up with your own strategy that works for you and you take off. Lobau Spark has started a fundraising effort for Crisis Text Line. We have a goal of $19 per episode, as $19 supports one person in their time of absolute crisis with their mental health. If you would like to donate through our fundraiser titled Lauren's Infinity, the link is listed in the episode's description. Lauren was my wife's best friend and loved by all who came into contact with her. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. Because I will not have someone sit next to a fireplace and think that they are shit anymore.
Yeah. And that's a big reason that, and I love that you say that, because that's a big reason that I have shit you don't want to talk about. Because it's not necessarily, I don't think, shit you don't want to talk about, like in this exact topic, but it's hard to accept that I'm neurodivergent. Okay, me, I'll say it's probably not hard for me because I've just always been out there. Like,
right.
Just like,
yeah,
everybody gets to see all my shit. It's cool.
Right.
Like, at one point, I was hiding. I was so angry about being different. All I wanted to do was understand. Like, literally, my manager, when I first went into leadership, he'd be like, I need to follow this guidebook. And I'm like, I don't understand the guidebook. And I would ask questions. And I learned that when I'm really angry, I cry. Like, this is just what happens. But yes, I'm upset that happened. Yes, I still think he's a douchebag. Apparently, I said things like, I'm going to squash him like a bug. That's very mean. It's not very nice of me, but
well, I mean, if he's a douchebag, like what's the problem?
Out of not being my manager, he's an okay human. So
okay, I gotcha.
But going into a job later on, I got that frustrated again when I was a production manager at a production studio, and we had to do digital conferences. I was the one that understood the tech. I was the one that understood the account management. I was the one who understood the production side of it. So literally, I was doing a little bit of all of these jobs. And yes, it made me successful. But when something broke, I was crying because I was so angry. And I've worked in many, many male-dominated industries. So there's literally a bunch of dudes around going, Jen, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I'd be like, fuck off. Yeah. I'm fine. Do your shit. My body is just, I'm really angry right now. And my body is just crying. Ignore the tears. And it's something that I just want to say for all of those that are struggling right now, know that these are teaching you things that will help you in the future.
Yes. That is, we learn by reflection, in my opinion, a lot of us do, is when we look back at all the shit that we've been through and how that affected this, that affected that affected the other. No one can connect those dots as well as people with ADHD, because we do see the big picture. So all of the struggles, Jen, that you have been through led you to where you are now.
Yep.
Most people would have folded.
I tried. I hardcore tried. I've tried many times.
I know, but you didn't.
It's true. It's true. It's
you didn't.
I also want to point out the fact that therapy is helpful. It's not one therapist fits all, and one type of therapy fits all. It's some people learn best by journaling and doing it by themselves. Some people do best. I talk things through. This is why I have a show called Teach Gen Tech. I want to be a dev role.
I'm signing up for that shit, by the way.
Do it. Do it.
I totally am.
And this is something that really taught me from being ADHD is I want to be a dev role because it's advocating for developers, and I want to be on stage and talk about shit, and I want to see others succeed. voila. I've been
Yeah.
in the tech world. I know enough about it, but every developer I was meeting, like the advocate, was saying, hey, you have the personality, but you don't have the coding down and you don't have content. So within a split second, I was like, cool, teach Gen Tech. It's a thing. Let's go. And it was a Wednesday. Okay, so I started talking to
That's so
people
brilliant,
on a
though.
Thursday.
Right.
And by the following Wednesday, I decided I was like, it'll be a thing.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to someone and he's like, I'll be on the show on Friday. Damn.
Yeah.
Less than a week, and I decided to do it, and it is a month old now. So it's the type of thing that I think ADHD taught me that.
Yeah.
Like I could take all of these things that people are telling me, and I'm like,
Right.
fuck it, I'm just gonna go for it. Granted, I will say winging it and just going for it has gotten me in trouble in the past, yet
Absolutely.
9 times out of 10, it normally works out.
That's because you're perceptive as shit.
Thank
That's, I mean, what's ultimately, you can predict a lot of things in the future. The problem is getting to those things that are going to happen if you do it the way that you say to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the frustration with other people, is when they say, like, this isn't going to work, yet that it is. And then later on, you prove them wrong, and they're like, oh, Jen, you were right. But then they take all the fucking credit for it. As if it was like their, thing when you're the one that started it in the first place.
That is something that I've really, really learned. And yes, that totally happens.
Yeah.
With the podcast, like shit you don't want to talk about, or personal development or therapy at this point of my life. And yes, I do need to advocate for myself when that kind of shit happens, because I'm not
Right.
just going to be in the background. And that's why I started doing a lot more documentation and that kind of thing. But especially when it comes to someone reaching their full potential, I don't give a fuck who they give credit to. I don't care if they had to listen to the entire podcast, every single episode, and then they listen to one of your episodes and they finally click. Cool. Give you credit, because it doesn't matter where they're getting the content. If it helps them, fuck it.
But I have to ask one final question.
For sure.
Because you've been amazing, and this has been some of the most fun I've had. What are you most proud of? And this is the hardest question that you'll ever get asked. Every ADHD person struggles with it, because it's always talking about things that aren't so great and the struggles and whatnot. I want to know what you are most proud of. You are free to brag about yourself in any way you see fit, and I will fucking love it.
I will say the thing I am most proud about is that I'm proud of myself. Let me elaborate.
Oh, that's good.
I have not only survived a shit ton of stuff, I have done some really cool stuff. I have done 2 half marathons. I've lost a lot of weight. I have traveled to Machu Picchu. I have seen Stonehenge. I've traveled the world. I've moved a million times. I have done multiple podcasts. I've decided to intern at a production company because I wanted to change the trajectory of my life and learn something new. I can talk to a million people. I got a job. I mean, I was let go in January, but I got a job that paid 6 figures. I can set my mind to something and I do it. And I've worked on my mental health. I'm naming all of these things because for so long, none of it mattered. And I still felt worthless. I was never able to be proud of myself when I saw that I had a photo from 2013 that I crossed the line at a half marathon because I couldn't jog it. I walked it. When I got to the top of Rainbow Mountain, and that's in Peru, it's like over 17,000 feet above sea level. And I was mad because I was having breathing problems because I'm asthmatic and I almost didn't make it. Not because it was my proudest moment and I worked through it and I got through it, but because I was asthmatic. And it's like, that is why my proudest moment, it was learning to be proud of myself and my accomplishments, because not everybody can do these things. We all have our own special gifts, and realizing that is what took me so long. And I'm very, very proud of that.
I love that so much. I'm a big believer that we need to create more highlight reels of ourselves. We need to create our own highlight reels that we can turn to at any time when we're down.
I love that. And
And
I'm
that's
going to add another. Can I add another?
Yeah, oh God, yes. You can add
Okay.
whatever the hell you want.
This one this one I'm really proud of,
All right.
is the fact that, and it's because you mentioned highlight reel that reminded me of, if you follow me on social media, on any of the social medias, the podcast or me as Jenn Schnod, I post shit that's real. The podcast TikTok shows me having an anxiety attack. I have old Facebook videos of me going through therapy, of having anxiety attacks, of, if I go back many, many years, me struggling through depression or reverse culture shock, or me learning about white privilege. It's out there. I share it because we're not our highlight reels. Yes, I 100% agree. We need our own highlight reels to be like, dude, I did that. Did you see that? I went skydiving. Did you see that? I did that. I did that. We need that. Yet we also need to break down these barriers that we're all so perfect and everybody sees their highlight reels. They don't see the imperfections.
Right. Break the walls down, but give them the confidence and create a highlight reel for them that they can actually see.
Yes.
So that they can go to that.
Yeah.
Because some people are incapable at the current state that they're at of watching their own highlight reel. Well, I'll fucking create it for you, deliver it to you, and show you how awesome you are.
I love that.
Jenn, I love you. You're amazing. I can't wait to see you soon.